I was trying to actually pay attention to him and listen to him. I had invited him here, but I couldn't do it. And so that's another reason I've got to get in absolute shape and get the best nutrients and operate at the highest capacity, because I can't just do this off adrenaline. I can't just do a 3-hour show and then prepare for 2 or 3 hours of more research with the guys and do a nightly news every night without getting myself completely mentally and spiritually and physically 100%. Because by the time I get home at 7 or 8 o'clock at night, I mean, I'm like a zombie. And I'm not complaining. But now that I've been exercising and eating right a lot better, I've suddenly actually had the energy to do it. It's good. So pray for me to stay on track here, folks, and to really try to be disciplined like somebody like Ron Paul, and to, you know, take care of myself fully. I mean, one big issue I discovered is that over the years, I might drink 2 glasses of water a day. You've got to have at least 8. And I was dehydrated for years and irritable and crazy because of it. Now I'm making myself, and I'm asking the crew, most days to drink the 8 glasses of water. But yet over the weekend, I didn't do that, and I remembered it and started doing it again, and then felt that incredible energy and understanding, and my old near photographic memory came back. So point is, I'm trying to take it to the next level. And lastly, and let's see if this goal can be attained now, I'm not going to cover mainstream news announcing TSA to take over the streets of America. That's coming up next hour. I'm not going to get into the giant stack of World War III being basically escalated into some incredible realms, or the communist Chinese confiscating people's property and land and trying to take their children if you have more than 2 children, and how that's the model here in the U.S., or Monsanto GMO corn linked to organ failure, new big scientific top journal reporting. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, every major GMO crop does this. And I've talked to top scientists on air who come to their people and say, this is sterilizing all the mice, and we've got to not have this go on the market. And they say, shut up, that's part of the plan. So we're going to be breaking that down. But I'm not getting to all that. I'm going to discipline myself. I'm going to do it. And I'm going to take your phone calls, because I love hearing what you have to say, the news items you raise, the issues you bring up, the questions, the comments you have. We're going to take your calls, nothing but your calls for the rest of this hour. Then at the 8 after, at the second segment next hour, I'm going to blitz news. And then I got Gerald Celente on, and I'm going to continue with news and your calls in the third hour. And the news is all coming up. But first, I'm going to take your calls straight ahead, 800-259-9231, 800-259-9231. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Countdown to Extinction. I was listening to that this morning. That is a good song right there. Just like the Pied Piper. You know, I agree with Dave, too, man. Canned hunts where people love to kill almost extinct animals. I've seen videos of these on YouTube where people go out to these ranches or whatever, and they'll, like, release birds or whatever right out of containers, or animals. Some people go up to the cage and shoot the animal in the cage and then have a trophy put up. I don't know. It's pretty crazy. Okay, let's go ahead. I mean, it's one thing if you like to hunt with a bow or something and then you actually go and process it or butcher it yourself and eat it. That's great. But let's go ahead and go to John in Illinois, then Mark, Bobby, Nick, and others. You're on the air, John.
Yeah, hi, Alex. I appreciate your show, and I've been a listener for several years. You know, and I struggle with some of the same things you struggle with. I mean, people not wanting to be informed and knowing truth. And I appreciate the vast array of different sources that you bring to the table. I do have one question, though, in regards to, you know, how do you prevent yourself from being played? As an example, you know, I know your guest Robert Chapman has said that he expected gold to be over 2,500 at the end of this year, you know, because I think it was Goldman Sachs was saying, you know, we're going over 2,500, or, you know, they expected it to be at 2,500. So Mr. Chapman said he expected it to be higher, as a matter of fact, because if they're saying 25, you can say that they're afraid that they're trying to suppress it. And obviously at today's price of around 1,600,
Well, John, I mean, let's be clear here. It's not being played. I mean, if you look at a 12-year gold graph, it was 260 12 years ago, and it's gone right up to 2,000. And then the globalists have done desperate things, destroying their own commodities market, raising the margin where there basically is almost no speculation now, and they've got tens of tons of gold. And J.P. Morgan, I guess that was a sucker punch, because normally when they come out with an analysis, it's right, because they're at the top of the heap, even above Goldman Sachs. And that's what most analysts believed was 2,500 or higher. And Bob, I'd say Bob's right about 95% of the time. And but they just kept, and then MF Global has hurt the gold market. I mean, they've never in the 150 plus years of the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, CME group, ever allowed people to take private sequestered accounts, private segregated accounts, and keep it. And then have a guy lie and say, I don't know where it went, as if the feds don't know where that money was wired to. It was wired to London, and they know which banks it was wired to. J.P. Morgan's one of the big ones. And there's a 12-year graph. So we have it on screen. There is a 12... Oh, that's a 35-year graph. Yeah, I asked for a 12-year. They gave me a 25-year. I mean, that's gold. And if you look at the last 12 years there, from 09 up until now, it's going straight up. And so that little dip you see there is pretty much nothing when you put a 12-year graph in. So listen, I've always said this. What we say here is what I would do personally. I'm not telling you that firearms are a great thing, even though I said they're only going to go up in value. And now Wall Street Journal had the headline last week, guns and ammo, the new gold. In fact, show people that. Guns and ammo, the new gold. Click News, I think it was Wall Street Journal. Well, I know it was Wall Street Journal, but maybe another one too. Saw a couple saying that different ways, different slight variants of the headline. And so, again, I said guns, ammo, storable food, gold, silver, they've been the best investments. Within a year, it's gone up and down several times because the system is doing everything it can to knock it down because it exposes paper currency. But as global paper currency gets devalued, they can't hold it down forever. So I haven't sold gold that I bought at $260, and I haven't sold silver I bought at $5 an ounce. Not when silver hit $49, not when gold hit $1,900 and something. So that's what I believe. Playing you would be if I thought gold and silver was a bad investment, and then I got up here and I said, get it, and then it came out later that I thought that was a bad idea, like Goldman Sachs and J.P. Morgan. Remember last year, John, or 2 years ago, the J.P. Morgan emails came out from Timberwolf where they were selling their customers stock, housing stocks, housing commodities that they thought were horrible, but then they were telling the people it was a good thing to buy, unloading garbage. That would be being played. John, I want you to be able to come back, counter what I said, then others. Stay with us. Now, this is the problem with taking calls, because they'll ask complex, serious, piercing questions that need to be answered in detail. But again, no investments are bulletproof. None of them are silver bullets, as I've said about silver, a pun intended. But it's the closest thing to a silver bullet. If you're some insider, well, then stocks and bonds are great. But again, being played is like what J.P. Morgan's division of Timberwolf did, selling housing stocks that Congress then got the emails on. They said, we're selling total bleeping you-know-what to our customers. Ah, ha, ha, they're idiots. Ah, ha, ha. Here, I'm saying gold and silver, wherever you buy it. And if you're going to buy gold and silver, Midas Resources has great deals. Ted Anderson thinks they've hit the bottom with it going down a couple $100. But that's because the world is in a depression. The head of the IMF now admits that. Again, being played is the mainstream media that's not really the mainstream, the folks that pose as the mainstream, getting up there and saying unemployment's at 8.9 and inflation's at 6%, when every other private respected group that advises the Fortune 500, like John Williams, Shadow Stats, and the rest of it, use the old way the government broke it down. Unemployment's at 22 or more, depending on what state you're in. California's above 30 because of their carbon tax laws. By the way, California knows what it's doing. They want to bankrupt people. It's all about control. And then expanding on that, You've got inflation well above 11%. So the so-called mainstream media are paid deceivers. In fact, they'll take a lot of true news, but spin it. Oh, look, the TSA screenings aren't just for airports anymore, LA Times reports. They're going to be everywhere. They've been everywhere for 5, almost 6 years. It's been a public plan where to have a job, you're going to be federally certified as a citizen. You haven't paid all the taxes, they say? People that hire you will be given felonies. Felony federal charges. The illegals will be above the law. This is all a plan to destroy the middle class. The TSA is going to run everything. It's public. And I sit here with horror, going to the urban warfare drills, reading Army documents, John Warren Defense Authorization Act, now 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 2007. I mean, the 2007 Defense Act, they're horrible every year, the new stuff they have. This latest one abolishes the Bill of Rights, Constitution.
In the least that, you know, you did something intentional. I'm saying that just a caution that these people can, you know, play other people, and then, you know, like we, you know, heard, you know, one example, Mr. Chapman give his thoughts based on what they said. And
oh, I do agree with you. No. In hindsight, because J.P. Morgan is so desperate, because according to Max Kaiser and many other experts I agree with who've been proven right, they couldn't physically deliver gold because they had been in the market shorting it to try to drive it down. And then if it didn't go down, they were going to be basically bankrupted. So they did stuff like MF Global, didn't deliver the gold. They did stuff like raise the margin calls over and over again through their control of governments worldwide. And they did stuff like con the public into believing that it was going to go up. And so, yes, you never know what curveballs they're going to throw, but they can only play these games for certain short periods of time. As they globally devalue currencies, which they're accelerating, what's going to happen to commodities long term?
They should go up. They should go up if true economics prevails.
Exactly. So all we can do is go with free market economics. They've got a rigged market, but history shows, Ron Paul agrees, the von Mises Institute agrees, Austrian economics, even the Keynesian, bottom line economic law is what goes up must come down. And so their currency system is going to catch up with them. It already has. Man, I go to shops now to buy stuff. I go to the grocery store. The inflation is horrible. And they're telling us that inflation is 3, 4, 5, 6%, depending on what group you're looking at, John.
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, so who knows what's going to happen? I mean, who knows? They could do anything. They could outlaw gold and silver again and say, turn it in. I mean, when you're living under tyranny, that's why societies fall apart, because there's no security to invest. There's no security to build. There's no security to hire. There's no security. Except if you're a big globalist, Fortune 100, you know how things are going to go. You know how to plan. Everybody else is shut down.
Yep. Well, I appreciate your show. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. And again, I said I'm going to take a lot of calls. I've taken one in 15 minutes. By the way, he was listening on, well, what was that station? I need to